ever stop and think about how that milk in your fridge stays fresh for a week? Or how salami can just sit in your pantry for months and still be perfectly good? It's pretty amazing, right? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the fascinating food science that gets animal products like milk and meat from the farm to our tables all safe and sound. I mean, think about it. These foods are loaded with protein, vitamins, all the good stuff. But here's the catch. The very things that make them so nutritious for us also make them a five-star hotel for microbes. So the real puzzle is, how do we stop them from spoiling? How do we make them safe to eat, not just for a day, but for weeks or even months down the line? And that's the heart of the problem, isn't it? Left to their own devices, these foods go bad, and they go bad fast. So the number one job for food scientists is figuring out how to hit the pause button on all that bacteria and spoilage. And that brings us to this whole field of food preservation. Really, it's just a fancy term for a bunch of super clever tricks to slow down those pesky microbes. The whole point is to make food last longer, while making sure it's still safe and good for you. All right, let's start with something we all have in our fridge. Milk. Now, milk is a fantastic case study because it gives us two totally different problems to solve. First, how do you keep it fresh for, say, a week? And second, how on earth do you make it last for months? And the solutions couldn't be more different. For that short-term freshness, we've got a process called pasteurization. But for that super long-term storage, we're talking about dried milk.
So pasteurization is kind of genius in its simplicity. You start by heating the milk. Not to a boil, just enough to kill off the bad guys, like salmonella. We're talking about maybe 72 degrees Celsius for just 15 seconds. Then, and this part's key, you cool it down super fast. That stops any leftover microbes from waking back up and multiplying. It's this 1-2 punch that makes our fresh milk safe to drink without really messing with the taste.
Okay, so that's great for your morning cereal this week. But what if you're an astronaut, or you're stocking a survival bunker? What if you need that milk to last for months, or even years? You can't just stick a carton of pasteurized milk in the pantry and hope for the best. The secret? You've got to take away the one thing all those little microbes need to thrive: water. No water, no party for the bacteria. And this diagram shows exactly how it's done. The milk goes into an evaporator first, which thickens it up by getting rid of some water. Then, that thicker milk gets sprayed into a huge hot dryer. The little droplets dry in a flash, and what you're left with is that fine milk powder. It's a game changer for long-term storage. And this right here, this is the perfect example of a core idea in all of food science. Everything's a trade-off. Right, with pasteurization, you get that fresh taste, but you got to keep it cold and drink it fast. With dried milk, you get a shelf life that's practically forever, but you lose that fresh taste, and you have to mix it with water yourself. There's no single perfect solution. Okay, let's switch gears from the dairy aisle to the deli counter. If you thought milk was tricky, preserving meat is a whole other level. It's not just science, it's practically an art form that we've been perfecting for centuries. We're going to look at two big ones: sausages and cured meats. So, how do you make a sausage? Well, it all starts with grinding up the meat. Then comes the really important part: mixing in all the flavors and, you guessed it, the preservatives. Salt is a big one. After that, the whole mixture gets stuffed into a casing to give it that sausage shape. And finally, it's got to be cooked or smoked or dried. That's the step that makes it safe to eat and helps it last. But then you have curing. Oh, curing is where the real magic happens. It's not just one thing, it's a whole collection of ancient techniques. You can see here we're talking about salting, smoking, and drying, often all working together. And these methods do more than just preserve the meat, they totally transform it. This is how we get the deep, savory, incredible flavors of things like prosciutto, bacon, and salami. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this actually works. Salt is the OG preservative, right? It literally pulls moisture out of the meat, and like we saw with the milk, that makes it a terrible place for bacteria to grow. But the modern secret weapon, that's nitrites and nitrates. And these things are crucial. They stop the growth of one of the scariest foodborne bacteria out there, Clostridium botulinum. That's the one that causes botulism. Seriously, figuring this out was a massive breakthrough for food safety. And we're back to our favorite word: trade-offs. The very processes that make sausages and cured meats so delicious and long-lasting also mean they're often high in salt and fat. And those super important nitrates, well, they're the reason you see health advice about eating processed meats in moderation.
It also explains why you see all those nitrate-free labels at the store now. They're often using things like celery powder as a more natural source. So when you step back and look at it, all these different methods, from heating milk to curing ham, are just really smart solutions to a very natural problem, spoilage. And when you understand the how and the why, you can make much better choices for yourself.
Let's make this super concrete. Take a look at this chart. We're comparing regular pasteurized milk to dried milk that's been mixed with water. See? The big ticket items like protein and calcium, they're basically the same. Yeah, there are tiny little differences in calories and fat, but the takeaway is clear. The right kind of processing is really good at preserving the core nutritional value of a food. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Food processing isn't just some weird, mysterious thing. It's technology, it's science. It's our way of solving a fundamental biological problem. How do we stop nature from taking our food back before we get a chance to enjoy it? So next time you're walking down the grocery aisle, I bet you'll see those cartons of milk and packages of salami a little differently. Now that you know the science behind them, from the simple heat of pasteurization to the ancient art of curing, what are you going to look for on the label? It's your choice, and now you're armed with the science.